Welcome everyone to these updates for November, the last update of the year, of course. The next one will be in January. Quite a number to get through today, which is quite nice. No notes about this one, but just a nice little gift just to demonstrate that. So if you're using your Android device to scan things, and you've now got a black and white option, you can see it. I think it just applies it right at the very end of the GIF. You just get a clarity of the image. That's all it's about. So it's just an additional filtering tool to give you a much cleaner, clearer image on anything if you actually do scan using your phone, which more and more people do now. Because and I remember when you first came in, the scanning on them was terrible, but now it's actually very, very quite sophisticated. I use it a lot. Moving house and forever scanning things, so it's a great asset. So that's nice and easy. This I think is a really good one. There's another announcement later on about chat, that you can actually select which threads you do or don't follow. So if you get inundated with endless messages and things popping up all the time, and you can always turn the notifications off, don't forget, that's also an option. But it just means you can organize which things. If you, certainly with some of ours, some I need to see the notifications coming in, so the fact that you can do that is good. But others, there might just be an occasional visit just to catch up. So, you know, if you're in a technical forum, for example, then you might not necessarily want those messages kind of crowding your thought space on your device all the time. So you can choose to follow or unfollow accordingly. You can go into the settings and do follow all if you want to. If you want to turn it all back on if you think you've not got it right. But it just means you can stay more focused in the notifications that you get, which I quite like. This one I also quite like. So you're going to get context-based filters. It does depend on you accurately identifying the data type. So if, for example, you've got a phone number in a column and you haven't identified it as, in effect, for a phone number, you need a leading zero. You need to identify it as text if you want to keep the leading zero in there. And then that would mean that when you come to do the filters, you'll get text-based filters. So you won't get a number-based filter, which is right, because you don't want to. It's not, you don't want to calculate on a phone number, do you? So it should basically, as long as you've got the data types identified correctly in the table, then it will also then filter out the filters that you can apply. So you haven't got all 21 to choose from. You've only got the ones that you want. Much easier. So if you teaching your students to use filters, like I say, as long as the data types are right, they will then get the ones that they can apply, rather than them to work out which ones they can and can't apply, which is kind of quite nice. It gives them a bit more help, and you, in fact, as well. The same, makes it quicker and more efficient. So I quite like that. It's a nice little addition. Can I just ask? We can use the hands up at the bottom, can't we, to give me an indication? Does anyone use live streams in Google Meet? Anyone stream open evenings or anything like that for people who can't make it or anything like that? Yeah. Carl doesn't, bit of a nod, so occasionally. Yeah, okay. So you now get the in-call messages in the Meet available in the live stream, so they'll see the chat, which you didn't get until very recently. There's a separate chat, isn't there, in the live stream on YouTube if you're watching it that way, but there's also the separate live stream within the Meet bit that they'll be looking at, and that's where this appears. So just to say that you've got that now, should you need it. I mean, we often will run a back channel in chat when we're running those kinds of events where we need to discuss things, so kind of run them side by side when we're doing it. There's a whole load of new templates available to you in Google Slides. So when you open a new slide, you get that background options on the right, usually popped up straight away, and then you can apply those straight away. The template we're running here is one that we've built in a separate slide deck, and we've imported in the bottom of the layout. In the bottom of this panel that opens at the bottom, you've got an import option. So that means that all our team all have the same layouts of slides with the same images and things. So it means that we maintain our corporate image, and you can do the same, but it does mean that someone's got to import them. But if you're not using that and you just want some nice backgrounds, you've got lots more to choose from, should you choose to use them. And they're organized by topic as well, which is kind of quite nice. We talked about Google Vids last month, and Dave Leonard very kindly gave us a very quick idea of how it would work. It should now be generally available for everyone. It does require you to either have an Education Premium, Gemini Education Premium, Gemini Education, or Education Plus license. So it's not available to all. So you've got to be on the educate. It's not even available to teaching and learning. So just to be aware of that. So if you're one that someone's on teaching and learning, and you think the Google Vids rather, is an option for you for some nice video creations. The feedback from Dave was it's nice, it creates some good things, but it's not necessarily a time saver because there's a lot of editing and cropping and cutting to do to get to where you want it to be. But actually, the final product is actually very nice. I think that's a fair summary of what he said last time. So it's definitely a good tool, definitely really good. And like with all of these things, AI is busy working in the background, so it's only going to get better and better. And so if you are using it, start to give feedback now so they've got a chance to improve it. And anyone not had a look yet? Just do a search for Google Vids and you'll get there. It's out there now, so it should be available for you all. Okay, Gemini apps for teens is coming. Yeah, just to be aware that it's there. Additional safeguards in place. Content policies will in place. There's a video that they'll be required to watch. As your Gemini stuff is exactly the same. So if you're using the Gemini prompt exactly the same, it's not viewed by humans. It's not used to train the model. So all the terms of service that your Google Workspace account is bound by currently are still in place with Gemini because it's an additional app. So you've got it there to use should you want to. Really interesting development. So 13 plus basically. Interesting to see how we're going to approach that. And all these things, it's like with mobile phones and with AI and all of the tools that the students are using, just the internet generally. There's a brilliant quote from the Byron report, which is now, 15 years old? Maybe Tony remembers it. I'm looking, Carl might remember it. It's quite an old document. And she gives the analogy of a swimming pool. She says, we teach the kids to swim. There are anti-slip floors. There are notices, there are handrails, there are lifeguards, but we still teach them to swim. Despite all the risks, we still teach them to manage the risks for themselves. And this is the same. We've got to think about how do we include the teaching of this within our curriculum. And I don't think it's a IT person's role, although I suspect that might be the role that schools use. It's not solely an IT person's role. It's in the same way that literacy isn't and numeracy isn't. It's a whole institution requirement that everyone needs to think about good models of how we use this stuff safely and ethically and correctly and things. So it's an interesting new challenge for you all. You definitely need to think about. Tony, you want to say something?
Just a question for me, Paul. Have we got a timeline roadmap for this coming, or is it just coming?
My understanding is it's I don't remember what the date was for this. I'll look it up at the end when we have our chat and see if I can find when the announcement was made. But it's an early one, so it would have probably been mid-November. It would have been in the announcement, is my guess, just judging by where it is in the slide deck. So it should. They say 15 days for stuff to be rolled out.
Okay, so looking.
But think 3 weeks. I think they say 15 days to think it's 2 weeks. Just over. It's not. I think they mean 15 working days. So I think they're talking about 3 weeks. And you've got to enable it in the admin panel. So if Gemini is currently turned off for your students, then what I don't know is because this is for 13 plus, because you've got the 18 plus thing in the admin panel. There must. I'm just thinking. I've not looked. There must be now a new 13 plus label that you can apply, I presume. It only just occurred to me that I don't know how the admin panel needs to be set up to allow that. For some of you, Theo, I think all your students are over 18 anyway, aren't they? So that's not an issue. But that's not for everyone in the call here. So some people will have to get in the admin panel and have a look at how you enable that before the students get some. And before you do that, I think you need to think about, well, how do we start to introduce it? That's the thing. And the reality is, don't forget, they're already using it at home. If you've got personal Gmail accounts, so beyond ChatGPT or Gemini prompt or Claude or whatever it is that they're using at home, so they're already using it. It's just about how do we actually get them to start to use it properly and safely and ethically and things. So
Paul,
so interesting times.
Just jumping in there, Paul. Yeah, 8th of November was the announcement. I've just put the blog page for it in the chat space.
Brilliant.
So you can just click on that and have a quick scan through. Might answer some of the questions. and whatnot. But yeah, 8th of November.
So it should be there now. I did have a quick play earlier with one of our dummy accounts and had it log on, but it's still saying it's not available. And I've made sure that he's actually in the right age bracket. So I don't quite know when it's going to be. But that's on it is an education domain. It's our training domain. So it's not there yet. So it might be a day or two yet, but it should be there imminently. Okay, so I've talked about gems at length a number of times. I really like gems. I think they're great. I think you've got to invest time to get a really good prompt written so it will do things really well. But it's now uploading other doc types that you can give to it. And I don't know if I've got a separate announcement in here somewhere, I can't remember, but you can now also upload documents into the prompt itself. And up to 10 documents. So before you wrote your prompt and it was all text, and then when it kind of initiated the gem, you actually could then add documents that way. But actually, as you're building the prompt itself, you can now add up to 10 documents in there. So if this was, for example, a gem you're writing to mark students' work, you can have the rubric that you're marking against already in the instructions, so you don't have to upload that bit each time. You just have to upload the student's work. You can even upload a sample, a grade 9 sample, a grade 5 sample, a grade 4 sample, for it to compare against and see if it can manage that. I'm still learning all the things that gems can do. And I've said before that I think the scope for it to have, your exam spec and some resources and see how it goes. In the same way you could do it in Notebook LM. Notebook LM might be better because you've got 50 documents you can upload there. But you could do that in gems now as well, as long as you haven't got too many resources. Ooh, just suddenly stop sharing. Why did it do that? That's a bit odd. Sorry about that. Oh, it's because the slide deck refreshed for some reason. Let me get back to, it's just loading. So yeah, so gems, I think, maybe I'll ask the question and we'll talk about it at the end. Any interesting uses of gems people have discovered since they've been playing? Those of you who do have Gemini licenses. Sorry, this slide deck's being slow to load. For some reason, it just refreshed. I have no idea why. Come on. Come on. I'm back to that. Come on, Chris. Come on. Oh, it's really slow. Oh, for goodness sake. There we are. Should load back up again in a second. Slick professional presentation, eh? There we go. Okay, so more documents in the prompt and more document types is the message there for Gemini. Gemini licenses there, of course, only. The facility to reference things all over the place, I really like. In the Gemini prompt, if you go use the @ symbol, you can reference mail, drive, calendar, tasks, meet. What's the sixth one? The sixth, drive. Did I say drive and docs? I can't remember which. There's 6 Google apps that you can reference just by using the @ symbol. So that you can actually reference that, and ask it to interrogate things. So if you're busy in your email, you can say, when's my next? And it'll show you things, ask it to create events. When you ask it to create events, interestingly, it won't add in another user's name. I sent a message to Chris earlier saying, I'm trying to try some things with calendar and tried to add him into a calendar event. It created the calendar event, but it didn't add the person in. So again, when you're using Gemini, if you are using Gemini, have a go at these things. If it doesn't do what you want it to, make sure you feed back. You can see on this little picture here, I've got the plus, the thumbs up, thumbs down. Thumbs down prompts you to give feedback. We've got to give feedback so they know that they've only done half a job. And it's great that you can do that thing. You can see when's my next meeting with Tony, and it'll go and find it. But if it asks you to create an event and you can't add someone's email in, that to me seems a bit like a really obvious missed step. I presume it's going to arrive, but it's not there yet. So tell them and they'll hopefully put it higher up the priority list. But all this integration is just going to get better and better and better. And so it's to play with it. Because don't forget, Gemini teaches itself as well. So when you try and do these things, that gets placed in the Gemini server. I can't bring myself to say brain in the Gemini server, and will eventually perhaps either teach itself or some developer will develop that functionality. So this is the option to respond to things without necessarily having to open everything. It's just about, I think about 2 years ago now, I did a slide where there's about 40 different things that we're doing to develop the chat and spaces functionality. And it's just the key, because we use it loads. I don't know what you're like within your organization. If you're not using chat, yeah, it's changed the way that we communicate. I don't think we get fewer messages. I just think that where they arrive is different, and you deal with this in a different way. Your mindset is different, so it's often much quicker and more efficient. And you can stick a link in there, and it just doesn't clog up your inbox. Like I say, so it's not less or more messages, just the same number, but a different place and a different attitude. And it also allows you, don't forget, when you create it, a space, you can actually invite external people. So you want to collaborate across organizations, you can quite legitimately say, you know, here's that group. So that monthly updates group that you're all in, hopefully, yeah, that we allowed external people so you can all be in there. And I've been blown away by the kindness of you all, that you share your wisdom amongst each other, yeah, and the knowledge that is there. You know, your knowledge as a group is just kind of the hive wisdom is just fantastic, and a fantastic thing for you all to feed off. If there's anyone in the group that's thinking, what on earth is that about, and you're not in that group, let Chris know and he'll add you in, or me know, and we'll add you in. Theo, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, with a Gemini, is the calendar features or appearance restricted to enterprise license?
What my previous message about using the calendar?
Yeah, is that only for enterprise?
No, I didn't say that it was. So no, I mean, you've got a Gemini license.
Yeah, I do, but I swapped mine because I had enterprise and swapped with someone else with education. So now I don't have it. So I'm assuming it's one of those you lose if you use education, if you use enterprise.
Let me just quickly check. That's a really good question.
Because what we are finding is that so many little things like this. You know, we do everything. We think everyone is seeing the same thing, and then we find that people haven't got the right license for these.
Yeah. No, I've just checked. It says Gemini Education and Education Premium.
Oh, okay.
But we're getting to the middle of November now, so if it's 3 weeks, it might not quite be applied to all domains yet.
Okay.
That might not be why.
Okay.
So yeah, so that one is particular for both. Okay, so we've done that one. Excellent. So you might already have seen, those who've got LIM licenses, the option to create images is now in the insert menu as well. You don't have to go to the Gemini option. You can actually just use the insert menu. It's just another route to do it. Education Premium, Education Plus as well, of course. But you can be quite specific about the images that you want to create, yeah, in terms of style. And there was a time as well, don't forget, that when they didn't do faces, they got the face making bit completely wrong, with a terrible set of images of people in Nazi uniforms, which created quite a storm. And to Google's credit, they turned the face making bit off in Google Gemini, and you couldn't make images that included human faces for quite a while. That's been clearly, hopefully, been fixed now. They were applying a diversity rule, but not applying a historically accurate rule. That was so it caused offence. So to their credit, they turned it off, but it's back on now, so you can create images. But you've also got that same button in there. You can use a Gemini prompt to do it, but this is specific. So I think because it's focused on images, you're going to get a better selection. I think that's my understanding. This looks very similar to the image creation tool that was just in slides. It's now been copied across into docs as well. So you've got the discrete tool for image creation inside Google Docs, which is great. Well, that's a repeat. I think we've already mentioned that you can do it without opening it. This is good. Can I ask, are people using building blocks in Google Docs? This is, I've not put it on there. I do apologize. I think this is a Teaching and Learning and Education Plus Workspace licenses. You can, using the @ symbol, you can create building blocks, and you can create custom building blocks. So if you've got a table for example, that you use on a regular basis in lots and lots of documents, you can create a template. The challenge, of course, with templates in Google Workspace is that if you turn templates on for your staff, you can't turn it off for students. It's a global thing. It's on for everyone or off for everyone. So typically people don't use templates for that reason. So often they'll make copies of documents and just remove all the text and start again, or they'll name it as a blank copy and then go back to that version history. And so there's a lot of faff. If you create a custom block of a table layout or an email layout or whatever it happens to be that you use in documents a lot, rather than having to copy and paste, you build it once, save it as a custom building block, and then you can next time you open a brand new doc, in the @ symbol, in the building block section, your custom building blocks that you've built will be there for every single doc that you make. So it makes adding those kind of regularly used layouts into new documents much, much quicker to do if you've got Education Plus or Teaching and Learning. So it's a really, really good tool, and I don't know how many people are using it. Yeah, exactly right, Dave. That's a really obvious thing, isn't it? Because you want staff to have it, but why do the kids need templates?
And not just that, sometimes the amount of templates that there are, staff can't find what they're looking for. So we've got a lot of our HR forms and the like in template gallery, and either there's too many of them, so you have to create multiple categories, because as soon as you go over 10, there's a tiny little down arrow to expand it, which teachers are physically incapable of seeing, it appears. Or you
I feel your pain, Dave.
Yeah, so it would be great to be able to say, well, this group need access to these templates. So yeah, and if anybody feels that pain, please feel free to jump on and feed that back to Google as well, because that would help all of us, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, a template is a really useful thing, isn't it? All your late letters, concern letters, trip letters. It's a whole load of things that you could standardize to make sure key information is included. So it makes everyone's working processes much easier. But like I said, the global or on for everyone or off for everyone is definitely not what you want. Because if some smart kid does spot the template gallery, then it's not, no one's going to die necessarily, but they could cause some harm or do some damage, or so you just don't want that to happen. So yeah, so as an interim thing, building blocks I think are really useful. Yeah, once you get the habit of them, the only shame, of course, is that you can't share them across users, so it's just in your account. But hopefully that will come one day. But I think they're great little tools. Multimedia, more than one image to a Google Chat. I don't know if you've clocked this, that in the past you've only ever been able to add a single image at a time. You can now add multiple images, and as the note says, up to 20 files, and you can just drag them in if you want to. You want to use that functionality. Nice little thing, because there are times when you want to share. You've all been to a conference, you want to share those details and things. So to be able to do that is really, really good. Okay, so if you've got control over the apps that people do or don't use, which you don't quite expect, you're now in a situation where your educators can actually request access for their students for particular apps. So the admin person will then get a request from the teacher saying, these people have been, this teacher's asked for a request to this app for these people, these students in their class. And then at the bottom, you can see there, you get the option to agree whether you actually allow those people to have that or not. So it's a rather neat little way of doing it. Yeah. All the usual rules about you doing your due diligence about what does the app do and what does it access and should it be accessing all of those things, you still need to do. That doesn't take that away, of course, but it's quite nice that there's an easy way for teachers to make that access. And if you are the admin, you can then make the decision whether you tell your staff that they can make that request or not. Maybe you don't want, maybe you're worried you get too many. If you're in a large organization like Dave, you could potentially get lots and lots of requests in a single day. So you've got to think about that. But and if you already have a process in place, you might not need it. But nice little bit of functionality should you choose to use it. I'm a big fan of tables. I really like them. I think they're really, really rather neat. I'm using them more and more. You can use table references. I think I've said this before in your formula when you create things, and you can see in the text I've literally just copied and pasted out how the thing works. So you can reference specific columns. So if you wanted to do particular things in a particular table, that you can actually do that. I think they're really good, and actually cross-referencing from one table to another. So we've got a sheet that's got all the different training projects that I'm involved in across all the organizations that we're in. And then there's a master sheet at the front, which is another table, and that table just pulls out data from the other tables. And the formula is so much easier to write. Rather than thinking about cell references all the time or going in and clicking and dragging, I just type the names of all the various cell references. You've got to remember about the square columns, square brackets for the column references, but once you've got that, it's actually really good. Tony, do you want to say something? Or Gaz?
Yeah, does the column references work in functions like the query function?
Never tried it, I don't know. That's a really good question though. Yeah. Inside the select, inside the actual query, the speech mark, my guess would be not, because the speech marks basically sets it apart as it's a separate language, isn't it?
Yeah, but outside, when you're referencing the table on a different sheet or something, you know, you might say A2 colon AY, might you wonder whether you can say all.
Yeah, I mean, you in the query outside the speech match, you can already do that if you've got a named range. I think tables behave like named ranges. Yeah, so yes, you can definitely do that outside the speech mark, but inside the actual select query itself, I don't know. I've never tried that, but that's a really good question.
Okay.
If anyone's had a go, let me know. If not, I'll have a go at some point. Okay. When you're in a video call, this is I've just bought myself one of these standing desks. I'm sat down now, and I was stood up earlier because I just think I ought to get a bit more exercise. I'm going to get myself a little treadmill to do some exercise while I'm stood here next. And as I was adjusting the height of it, I saw it do this. Literally, as you start a meet, it will take a decision about where you're sat within the frame, and actually that last little move as the image of the man moves sideways is the camera adjusting the image so you appear to be in the middle of the shot. So it's a really nice little function. You almost don't notice it happening, I think, but it just means that you're a little better, a bit nicer framed. But it only happens at the beginning when you first join the meet. So I think if you move afterwards, it doesn't do it again. But that's kind of nice. I'm very excited about this. We have got loads of chats running. You can now create a new section and give it a title of your own and add chats into the section that you built. Excuse me. So I think because basically you have the chat and the spaces, haven't you? That's all you've had for quite some time now. You can now actually create a separate section. I don't know if there's a limit on how many sections. I didn't check that, of your own, and you can move the various chats into that new section. This was late on in the month, so it might be it's not there yet. But that to me seems really sensible. It's been a long while, isn't it? You know, in effect, it's like a label in your mail, isn't it? You can actually get things a bit better organized. So I'm very excited about that. I think it's a great thing. Andy, yeah.
Yeah, just a quick one. Are they like sort of topics? Or is that treading or going down an avenue I shouldn't be going down?
I think theoretically, yes. You decide what they're called. You can name them whatever you like. So you can organize them in any way you want. I mean, that's one of the nice things about it. They've sensibly allowed you to name each of the sections and give it a name of your own. So I think that's what's a kind of platform leads. Is that one is, and then direct messages. They've got. Okay. Important. They've got an important direct messages and project leads or something. So you can organize it how you think you want to organize it, and that combined with the things like responding to the chats without even opening them, following threads or not following threads. All these new bits of functionality are making that chat space, adding multiple files all at the same time, that much easier to deal with and manage. I think it's really nice. I don't know if you noticed there's also the shared files within the single chats now. Was it last month or the month before we announced? There's lots more functionality coming on board with chat and chat spaces just to make it a more and useful tool. There's a I think I've got it in here actually. Theo, yeah?
Yeah, so sorry, I was about to say that the Google Drive chat popped up yesterday in my chat, and I was a bit surprised. I thought that I've done something wrong. So yeah, you say that just as I was about to say it. So in my chat now, I've got my if someone shares any documents with me now, it shows up in the chat as a Google Drive chat share.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's just, like I said, we use it hugely amount, both internally and externally. We've got groups with all sorts of customers and schools and colleges and things. So it's a great additional tool. So when the Gemini app, mobile app rather, was first launched, it was Gmail accounts only. You can now use it on your Workspace account. Interestingly, I tried it on our enterprise account and it didn't allow it, but you should be allowed to use it on yours. But this was late in November, so it might not be available yet. If someone wants to have a quick look, see if it's on their domain or not, that'd be handy to know. But it will start to allow you to use the mobile app. And nice thing that the image it's showing, actually it reads images, which I'm sure you already know if you're familiar with the Gemini prompt, but it will actually summarize documents. So if you've got a document that someone's given you, you want to summarize it. I really think it's, yeah, thanks, Dave. So it's not yet available on Dave's domains, but it might be available on some. I don't understand the logic about how it gets released to domains. I thought it might be alphabetical at one point, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just on a whim. They just release it in tranches rather than doing it all at once. So up to the next 3 weeks. So certainly by after Christmas, you should all now be able to use the mobile app with your Google Workspace account. This one surprised me. I didn't even know you couldn't do this, and it just occurred to me. Perhaps I've just never even tried. I've just always assumed that until this is released on the mobile app, you'd not been able to drag email addresses around from to the CC or to the BCC place. I didn't even know you couldn't, like I say, but you now can. So it's just an extra little bit of functionality in the Gmail app on Android devices. I've noticed recently that a lot in the past when they announced functionality for mobile apps, I don't know why, but it would often be released for Apple devices before Android devices. And the last couple of months, all the mobile app releases seem to be Android first rather than Apple first. I don't know whether they made a decision to change the order that happens in. I don't know, but I think it feels like the right thing as it's their operating system for mobiles. But there we go. Okay, this one actually is in a December thing, but I was reading it. I thought this is really quite good. I really like this, and I think it was yesterday it was announced. So it almost certainly won't be on your domain yet. That you've got much more control about who you can assign form to. So if you only want your marketing team or you only want the year 11s or whatever to fill out a particular form, you can limit it by individual user, as you did before, but now also by groups and also by target audiences. Now, target audiences isn't available in the fundamentals version of Google Workspace, so it needs to be a paid version. And the admin person has to take those target audiences and set them up, I think, is the way that it works, if I remember rightly. It was a long time ago they were announced. Once you've got them, you can use those as well. As long as you've got a paid license. But it just seems to me a really nice additional feature that you can be much more granular in the way that you distribute various things. So if this is an application to join the college, for example, you could actually be specific, be a public one. But if it's someone about applying for a change of course or a ski trip or whatever it happens to be, or the year 7s voting on something, so whatever it happens to be, you can be specific, which I really quite like. So I quite like that. That's now happening. Okay, so I know we're a little bit away yet. We're only the 4th of December. It's only 21 days now, though. So the next updates are on Wednesday, the 8th of January. I do hope you get a visit from the little red man or the big red man, whichever one it is, and you get all the things that you hope for, as long, of course, as you are on the good list. And don't forget, those lists get checked twice. So you've got time, if you're on the naughty list, to address your behaviour and get yourself moved across, just to be on the safe side. Melissa, you got a question? Oh, she's pointed at her. People need to pin Melissa in the middle so you can read her notice.
We have a little Christmas card to share with you all.
Oh, excellent.
We got in a makeup artist and photographer, professional photographer, to create a Christmas card for the two of us. So we'd like to share that with you.
Yeah, excellent. Go for it. This is setting a new high level of expectations. So come on, very good.
So here we go. I'll just share it with you.
It was done by Gemini.
Theo, you cynic.
Absolute cynic. We spent a lot of money on this, Theo.
Yeah, very much. There you go. So there's our
Excellent.
Christmas card. Merry Christmas to you all.
Excellent, fantastic, very, very good. Well, you've got two.
One
books.
of you's
Yes.
looking well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Absolutely
yeah.
brilliant.
Thought you'd all enjoy that little Christmas present.
It's brilliant. Don't you love it? Don't you love it when technology comes to help?
He knows me well. He gave me 2 eggnogs.
Yeah. It's Avatar, isn't it? Oh, I'm not a fan of Avatar.
I'm also admiring Melissa's wreath there. I think that's pretty impressive.
I must confess, swiped off the internet. It's not actually my personal wreath.
Well, I'm going to let you into a secret, Melissa. That actually wasn't me and Tony.
I mean, to be fair, I did make this image. I just collected the 3 images from the internet and joined them together.
Yeah.
Dave, don't be shocked. I know you were a little bit flabbergasted there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andy, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just going to come back to a point you made earlier. I was going to say, how do we get on this good list?
I don't think there's any hope for me. I really don't think there's any hope.
Fucking mad.
Is that just a piece of magic?
We'll never be on the good list.
Yeah.
No.
I did hear a rumor that Elon Musk is deciding who's on the good list and the bad list, so I don't think there's any hope for any of us.
Oh, right.
We're all screwed then,
Elon
aren't
Musk
we?
and Trump have been asked to help out.
That's
I
why
don't think I want to be on a good
or
list.
the lump of coal.
No, absolutely. So I asked a question earlier about gems, about uploading documents and things. You can now upload to 10 documents. Has anyone had a go with it yet?
Yeah, I've been playing around with that.
What do you think, Gaz?
I created me as a gem by putting my job description in and building a prompt around my job description so that if I wanted to sound any ideas out and there was no one around, I could chat to myself. And it's working quite nicely. But I put a thing in there in the gem, asking it for it to be specifically critical as opposed to a people pleaser, because that's what the models do, don't they? They try and please us as best we can, but by asking it to be really critical of my ideas, it gave better responses and allowed me to go off on some divergent thinking. So I did that and helped one of our quality lead practitioners. She's got ADHD and she wanted a micromanager building that would help her identify what priority to do her tasks in and how long to give them. So we put some different documents that she had specific to her condition and her calendar, and it's starting to identify what works for her and what doesn't. So that was quite a clever one to build as well. And again, she got really strict with that and said, look, I want you to tell me, and to gamify tasks for her, which I thought was really quite cool. So she puts in how much time she's got for that day or that week, what tasks she's got, and then it sorts everything out and it starts to get a bit bossy, which is what she wanted. And then it's starting to say, right, gamify this task by doing this. And then, so yeah, I've done a couple with people.
Excellent. Anyone else? Anyone else been experimenting with gems? I think the challenge is because it's the process of making is sometimes quite long, isn't it? So my lesson planning one, I would say, well, the first make of it was probably 20, 30 minutes just to get it made. But then I've been in and tinkered with it a little bit, a couple of times just to refine it. So I think it's my big thing about the word understand in objectives. I think it's really unhelpful for a teacher because it's really hard to know how to assess understand. Is it just straight recall in the short-term memory? Have you understood anything at all? How do we know? So I've had to go in and say, look, write much more active verbs. So analyze, compare, contrast, explain, describe, these kinds of words, because they're much easier to think about how do I go about assessing those. So I've been in and refined that. But the other thing about the gems is that once you've written, I did it with another one, you write the gem and you've got an AI button at the bottom and it will rewrite your prompt to improve.
So my approach is go to Gemini. I told Gemini what my idea for my gem is and give it as much information as I can around what I want the gem to do. Then I ask it to create a prompt for me to use in the gem. So I've gone from my head into Gemini, it spat out a prompt. I put that prompt into the gem and then get the gem rewriter in the gem to rewrite Gemini's initial prompt from my brain. That's how I've been doing them. And that seems to give really good rules and behaviors. And it gives a really nice structure of character, tone, and then we can start to set at the bottom. And that's where we started to play around with the QLPs. We did a couple of test runs in the draft and realized it wasn't quite hitting the mark. It wasn't strict enough for her. So we just then started to iterate and tweak the behaviors and rules and its tone. And then it got to where she wanted to be. So yeah, I go a bit meta with it.
Yeah.
Head dump into Gemini, get Gemini to turn that into a prompt, put that prompt into the gem and get the gem AI to rewrite the gem.
Wow. Yeah.
Slightly different way to do it.
Yeah. The one I did was, I often get asked when I demonstrate Gemini in sheets, well, can it do some predictions? Can it say, so I've got this dummy set of data of a complete set of results and half a set of results. And I keep asking it, look at the half set, compare it to the full set and see if the students that are halfway through the course, whether they are on track to produce scores of a similar level as the first set of students. Seems a perfectly sensible thing to ask it to do. And it keeps telling me it can't do it currently. So I'm trying to build a prediction tool as a gem. And I've got it now to the stage where it says, it tries to do it, but the results aren't very good. So I've still got to do some work on it. And I use the AI gem inside it to rewrite it. What I didn't do is I didn't take a copy of what I'd written before. So I don't know where I started from. And you can't go back to it, which is slightly annoying. So I should have copied it out and pasted it somewhere else first before I did that. But it seems to me that yeah, using AI, I mean, when I first started doing this AI stuff, the thing I would say to people, tell it how to want to behave, tell it what you want to do, tell it to ask you questions. And in effect, using that AI button inside the Gemini gem is telling it to ask itself questions to see if it can improve it. In effect, that's what it's doing. So I quite like the fact that it's there, and definitely look at. Theo?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you know when we are likely to get Gemini within Admin Center. I don't have it at the minute, or is this an enterprise thing again?
I don't know is the answer. Generally, these updates, you know, they're public knowledge. You could all do these. They're all in one place. They're easy to get to. And Gemini's in the list, but they don't. Stuff happens that Forms. I don't think Gemini in Forms was announced, or I discovered it before it was announced, or something. It doesn't seem. They don't seem to be that good on the update announcements in Gemini as they do in Google Workspace. I don't think.
Yeah, I've seen Gemini demo GFE, but I haven't seen Gemini for Forms outside of demo GFE.
No, we haven't. Yeah, I've got it on our. We're on an enterprise account, a business account, of course, here. So we've got it, but yeah, it's not. But actually, it's also that I sign up for any beta stuff that Google offers us. So it might be I got it through that. But yeah, if people want to see that, for example, the Forms is a good example. It's not here yet. You know, give me a shout and I'll happily demonstrate that. I was planning to demonstrate that on the 18th, Theo, when I show your staff what the newer things are. Because I don't think it's publicly available yet. But I've got an account that I can show it you on. So yeah, that's one of the things I was going to demonstrate. Yeah. So I've asked actually, and actually interestingly, the person I asked didn't actually reply to that. I asked more than one question at the same time. So perhaps I should just ask where are the updates? So they are in the updates that we get, and you've seen a number today. But generally, knowing the roadmap, we don't really see that so well in the same way that we do with Google Workspace updates. And the other thing I keep meaning to ask, are people aware of the Google Workspace updates calendar? There's actually a published calendar where you can go and look at which ones are about to be released.
Is that? Can you show it to us, Paul?
Yeah, I've got to go and find it first.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure. I've seen the blog, but I'm not sure about the calendar.
We get a chocolate if we open the door.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. I'll just post it straight in here, so you can all have a little look for yourselves. And it doesn't go very far ahead. So I think there's a couple of things in January, right at the beginning of the year, on the up to the 20th. But then beyond that, there's nothing. So it doesn't show you a great deal ahead. But if you're particularly waiting for something, then it just tells you. And I think they're color coded, but I don't know what the colors are because I'm colorblind. Which is another additional thing. If you know something's imminent, if you heard me announce that something's about to arrive and it's still not here, you could always go there and have a look and see if it's there. So yeah, so it's a nice. I always check there just before I do these, just in case of something that's about to. Because they also, and they don't do it consistently. You also got the now on Monday, December the 2nd, now generally available. Is them saying we think we've done this, we've updated everyone. Yeah, I think the now generally available is vague enough for them to say, actually, no, we didn't quite get everyone done. But I think that's what they're trying to say, that everyone is now done and got that particular functionality up and ready and loaded and applied to all the domains. Yeah, so the table referencing that I just mentioned is due to launch on the 10th, it says. Yeah, and you've got click to view the details of launch and more details and all that kind of stuff. And with all Google calendars that are published, if you go to the bottom of the calendar, there you go, it's on the left now. It used to be in the right-hand corner. Bottom left-hand corner, you've got add to calendar. So you can add this calendar to your list of calendars in your own calendar view if you want to. Saves you coming here each time. Okay. Excellent. Any other questions, general questions about anything? Any comments people want to make about any of the updates you've seen today? Carl?
Well, not really about anything that we've seen today, but I'm interested in everybody's take at the moment on plagiarism detection and things. Well, one of the things that we've got in our organisation for HE is we had a Turnitin account, which they started charging additional money for AI detection. Whether it was very good AI detection, it's debatable. But we just did our renewal and decided not to go with the AI detection because it was costing us more money and it wasn't particularly found to be brilliant. So I know that there's obviously plagiarism detection on Classroom. Again, debatable how good all these things are, but I'm just wondering on what people's takes are for the AI detection and things, and what people are doing with regards to this, because it's always something that comes up in conversation where we are.
Any thoughts from anyone?
I think my thoughts are that they're not very good. Is the concise version of it. I think there's a lot of money goes into it and very little evidence to show that they are good at what they claim to be able to do. As a result, we just don't entertain the use of them. Very different for us because we don't have sixth form, and I think the stakes are very different, aren't they? So, but for our key stage 4 students, it's around teaching them about referencing and when it's okay to use AI and when it isn't, and treating it as a referenceable, if that's even a word, tool in the same way as you would if you were citing a book or a website. But like I said, different phase, so I don't know that I can offer any more than that, Carl. Sorry.
Yeah, it's one of these things that some of the tools that the students now use, like Grammarly, that's got AI in it, and obviously that all then gets detected, and so it pulls it too much.
I think my stance on it, I'm sort of speaking to lecturers in the FE world, and what I've noticed over the last sort of 6 months is people are getting a bit hung up on, I need to prove that it's AI. Well, take AI out of the conversation. It's plagiarism. That's all it is. It's the same as copying off the internet or out of a book, or me copying Paul Harper's maths homework on the number 6 to Rossett School in the 90s because I was lazy. Is why do we have to identify that it's AI? If we don't believe it's students' work, have those conversations with them like we would pre-AI, and try and remove AI from the conversation, because so many staff are getting bogged down now. That this seems to be quite a nice approach that we're taking, and it seems to be working. That, you know, if you've got a level 3 business lecturer who in their first assignment's dropping 8,000 words using different things and language that they haven't understood, then that's a clear indicator. You know, experienced markers will go, assessors will go, okay, we need to have this conversation. And another thing, that a little trial I did was we took that 8,000 word assignment, which was their first one for the BTEC. Prior to that, they all had to do on arrival to college a piece of written work in the classroom. So I took the original piece of work, put that into Notebook LM. I then took the 8,000 word assignment and put that into Notebook LM, and started to ask it questions around how long would it take a learner to advance as far as they've gone from point A to point B in an academic setting. And it said that they'd made the jump up to sort of foundation degree level learning in a matter of 11 weeks, which is very unlikely. So it's not proof per se, but you can start to use the different tools just to give you a bit of a starter for conversations. That's kind of how we're looking at it here. But I'm certainly of the belief that if you take AI out of the conversation and just treat it as plagiarism, it takes away a need for a detector.
But the question I've got is, do we actually know how big an issue it is? If, again, take AI out, how big an issue is plagiarism? How often is it the case that the tutor or the teacher doesn't spot or doesn't suspect?
I suspect it's not. No, sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's those people who were going to plagiarize before AI are still doing it now, but with AI. So it's probably no worse than it was before, is a guess. But
what do we think as a percentage? As a percentage of your cohort, how many do we think are plagiarizing?
Single digits?
I don't know. I'd say we're getting I've had a couple of staff reach out. I had a sport lecturer reach out, and I thought it was one of the greatest emails ever. He reached out and said, Gaz, I'm a bit concerned. My level 2 sports students, I think they're using a lot of AI. And I've, in my mind, I'm thinking now he's going to go with, how do I prove? He didn't even ask. The next question was, would you come into the classroom and deliver a session on the effective, safe, ethical use of AI? Want to encourage, yes, we know they're using it at home. So why not teach them how to do it properly, and so they're not plagiarizing? Because you've got a little point as well as that. You know, our students are older in FE, that some of them are committing plagiarism unwillingly and unknowingly. No. They don't know that it's plagiarism because they haven't been told. They see these tools. So we're sort of playing catch up of training students at the moment around the use of it, which is where teen will come in, I think. But there's work to be done, certainly in my mind, before we even turn it on at the console. I know they've got the video to watch, but what else? What other framework do we put around giving them access to it?
Yeah, but added to that, of course, when they do qualify or they leave college or leave university, they go into the world of work, they will be using AI.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we were just thinking back to the times when I've caught students plagiarizing. They're not ever sophisticated enough to know, you know, I'm currently at a level 4, and AI, build me a response to this question that's a level 5 so the teacher doesn't suspect. Do you know what I mean? They're not, none of them are and I just wonder whether, yeah, that's what in my mind is, yeah, I'm with you. Does an AI tool help with that? Because my suspicion is that if it's, most of it is obvious, of course some will get through, but most of it is obvious, the teacher will know, even before they use the paid for AI tool, that this is almost certainly plagiarism. And they'll just use the tool to confirm. So yeah, so it's interesting. Dave, you wanted to say something?
I think there's an element of we need to reflect on the pedagogy that we're using, don't we? Because if the traditional methods that we're using to assess pupils and learners' performance are open to this abuse, then let's mix it up a bit. Let's get them to stand in front of you and deliver a presentation on it rather than submit a written paper. Let's get them to create video files rather than written files as answers if they need to be remote. And yes, there is technology available now to allow them to create, deep fakes and the like. But if they're going to go to that level of effort to create the plagiarized work, then fair play to them, I say. Let's give them credit for that. I think if it's very easy and they can just copy paste it, then that's one thing. But if they can, if you take the ease away from it and mix things up and reflect upon the way that we measure people, then I think that's maybe the way forward there.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think as well, to throw another spanner in the work, is that jobs of the future are going to have AI within it. We need to embed some element of assessment where we assess them using AI. So where at the moment everyone's, no, don't use AI, it's plagiarism, but actually we need to develop some way to assess a student's effective, safe, ethical use of AI, which is going to be a big part of them going out into employment. So it's a bit tricky, isn't it, at the moment? We're all a bit rudderless.
Well, it's kind of like maths. When your maths teacher years ago said, oh, I want to see you working. So maybe there should be that AI element, and we should say, oh, what did you ask? What did you put into the AI engine to get these results?
Yeah, really good idea. I think an AI assessment tool, and maybe older students, there used to be a thing in the 90s that they used to call them rich question lessons. So the lesson would be driven by a really rich question that would elicit a whole load of creative responses out of the students, and really good learning happened. I really like them because it really focused your mind on what's the core bit of learning we're trying to get out of these students today. That was a great idea. Well, you do that, you say, here's an AI tool. Yeah, there's the rich question. Now develop your response. And the student can't just go in blind and know nothing, because they don't know what they're going to get back. So they need to know the topic really well in order to ask their first question, get a response, and refine and refine and refine until they got the final thing, which you then present, based on the question you asked me, here's my response. And using the AI to do that and allow them to refine and adapt the responses to get the best responses you get, I think is a really interesting assessment model. I think we're a long way from it, but I think it could be, and you see what Carl said, it's a really useful way to use AI. I'm aware we've been here an hour now. It's 1:01. I'm going to call a halt. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you very much for today. As always, great conversation.